Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Today we have a very special guest. We are joined by director and photographer Christelle de Castro, who I go way back with, although I haven't seen her in a long, long time, but we have some really long roots, some history, and I'm super excited to have her on. So cheers, Christelle. Thanks for joining us.
Let me get my...
Grab your drink out of that RoboCup. Cheers.
Cheers, darling.
Cheers. They gave us these awesome cups that fit your tequila drink.
I'm super pumped to have you here today because, first of all, you do some amazing work.
Thank you.
When Mike and I, this is before we wanted to start a production company, Mike and I were just looking to insure equipment that we were buying separately.
Yeah, we're looking how to write off the most amount of money.
And so, but even before that, we were looking for a place to just store our stuff. And Corey, who you know, who's been on this podcast before, she and her now husband, David, had like access to a basement in Williamsburg where he was storing stuff. And she was like, you know what, you guys could come, we'll set up cabinets, we'll do a kind of, a little bit of an office situation.
This whole basement was a shitty rig.
Yes, the whole basement.
Basically what it was. It's funny because when you describe it, I'm trying to think like as a person listening to it the first time, like you describe it in such a nice way. Like I feel like people need to know how janky this basement was. It was illegal activities heavy. Like it was for sure like not like safe for humans to be dwelling in or working out of. And then John and Mike's space, basically, so you get into the basement.
Is it high ceilings? Like, is it?
No, regular basement.
No, it's not like this amazing.
Which is why your studio was impressive, because the ceilings are so low.
There were pipes everywhere. It was danger zone. But basically, you walk into the basement, you go down the hallway, you make a left, which walks you through the utility room of the building. So like it's literally this dusty brick room with like water pumps and like it's scary. It looks like it's haunted.
It's where the furnace is. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's damn.
The start of like a Freddy movie.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You walk through that to get to their place, which then leads you to a door, like a trick door, essentially. Yeah. I remember going there and I was like, there's a fucking office back here? Like, I was like, what? There's like a door with like like tools hanging on the door. And then you open that. And did you say there was another door behind that door?
No, that false door was the only door that got
No, there was a door behind. There was a plywood door that had like punch list. And then it had like some tools hanging on it that you were like, is this a door? And you'd open it.
Yes.
And then there's like a steel commercial door. And you're like, what the fuck is this door? Open it.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. It was amazing. It was giving like almost like a I don't know, like just hidden. You would just never know that this like little space was there. So you open that, and then how big was that room? Because it was tiny, right? It was small.
It was probably like
the size of this.
8 by 15. Like,
oh, it was 8
it was
by 15.
longer
That's pretty big.
than it
was long.
wider. Yeah.
yeah, but we had all those cabinets, so you're like, it felt like kind of like a hallway that just.
Yeah.
Did you get any like agency or client like, hey, come by the
I
studio?
actually did have one person who wanted to come by, and they were like, I wanted to rent our 5D or something, I remember. And
You
they
brought
were like,
them back there?
They were like, I want to just check it out. And I was like, okay, come back there. And there was a guy that was living there, I remember.
I live there too.
There was like across from your studio, there was like another apartment that someone was living in. I remember coming down and there was the common bathroom, and that guy walked out of the bathroom in a towel and sandals. And the person was like, what the fuck? And they're like waved at me. And then I'm like, yeah, just come back here. And like, as I'm bringing them back and I'm like opening the doors and I'm like opening the second door. And then I'm like, this is bad. This looks really bad, but I'm not going to murder you.
You're like, this is not the day for clients. Fuck.
No, yeah, seriously. If I see that and then all of a sudden I see a steel door, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go through that.
It's really nice inside. Inside it was nice, but like.
Yeah, we like sound treated it. We like put stuff in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And, like we had put a little dehumidifier in the corner because we had like a little
Needed that
window.
back. Yeah, yeah.
But it didn't, it was like the back of a building.
It got about like
Hey, man.
15 minutes of light.
I'll tell you, do what you got to do in the beginning to get the job done, right? And just work.
Yeah.
New York ass shit.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
basement.
And you give it to New York because you can do that shit here. It's harder to do that in other places. New York has so many different ways and places you can, like, components that you can just find yourself in.
Right.
That you can't
I mean,
find
that was
yourself in
also a
other
very
places.
specific era of that neighborhood in Brooklyn too. Like,
It was right before all the big buildings. It was like Domino Sugar Factory was like just abandoned.
It was still abandoned.
Oh, yeah. Now it's got like volleyball courts.
There was that bar down there, Rockstar Bar, that was like just like a cocaine bar, basically, like legally.
Never went to Rockstar Bar.
That's where all my friends went.
After they rented the 5D from me, you'd be like, come on, go to the nice bar.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever work on anything together in the beginning?
Never did.
Never got to. But you, I mean, so you were doing like photo shoots out of there. Were you doing any video there at the time?
Not too much. I guess maybe I'll explain kind of my introduction to that basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I moved so I've been in New York for 15 years now, which is fucking insane to think about. Time flies.
Yeah.
When I moved here from San Francisco, I was working for a fashion company, and I became their photo director. I moved to New York to try and make it as a creative. And back home, I had studied film. Directing was my first love. And then it got curtailed with, I ended up moving to San Francisco, which was not my plan. But then I learned how to take photographs. And in San Francisco, I was mainly just being a street photographer and an artist. And so all my time outside of working at a restaurant, I was photographing like street culture and the youth and my friends. And, like that's what San Francisco, the art scene was all about, like photographs of like puke and people drinking and, like the street and
streets.
Yeah. And when I was in San Francisco, you met all your friends at art shows. So that was my scene. And then I was like, this is lovely and all, but I am not making any fucking money, spending all my money on film and developing and printing and framing. None of this stuff was selling, which was fine. It was super fulfilling, but I was like, how do I turn this into a job?
Yeah, you were honing your craft.
I was. I was just having fun.
Yeah.
But not really with like, I just didn't know how to turn it into a career. I was just more so giving into like the intuition and like, this is fun. And then like a year into that, I got my first solo show in New York, which was like, I was like, what the fuck is going on? This is strange. So after that, I ended up dropping out of school because I just kind of was bored where I was going to school. I didn't feel like I was getting I wasn't getting the guidance and the mentorship, and just like, it just didn't feel enriching to me.
What'd you go to school for? What was your major?
So I initially went to school as a double major, theater and cinema studies at San Francisco State. Immediately dropped theater because I was like, why are you in class with a cape on? It's not that serious. It's not that deep. And I was just like, I can't see my future like in this, like, because I was in theater in high school. I was like very active in creative arts, but I was like, I'm not going to commit my life to this. And like now that I'm a director, I think my background in theater helps me obviously to direct. And now I understand like acting for stage and acting for TV. It's different personalities, and also no shade to my thespians, like mad love to all of them. But it just didn't feel like
it's not the fit for
the
you.
environment for me. Yeah. So I dropped that. But anyway, basically what happened was photography just took off. And so I moved to New York to try and figure out some sort of job, because I was like, this is great. I was shooting bands, but I was like, how do I take this skill and, let's say, start
monetizing,
like how do I get my images in magazines, and how do I get hired by brands to do this, because I was getting hired by my friends, to do like press shots and things like that. And so anyway, moved to New York. I ended up getting a job at, it was opening ceremony. Fashion company. Was there for 2 years. I was basically shooting for their e-com site and helping build that out. And then after 2 years, I quit. I was sure that after leaving like a cool fashion company, I would get hired anywhere. I was like, this will be a breeze. I didn't have a backup plan. No one was hiring at that time. It was 2010, and I was like, okay. And shit was dire. I couldn't get a studio manager job. I couldn't get anything. I ended up having to sublet my apartment and crash at my friend's, like basically couch surf. And I was doing odd jobs, shooting homes for Airbnb and babysitting. But funny enough, doing those two things, I was actually getting paid about the same amount as I was getting paid at this company, which wasn't a lot, just FYI. But I had my sanity and I wasn't working like 12 hours a day. It felt like I had my autonomy, and I obviously like couldn't couch surf for a long time. So I was my place that I was subletting was in South Williamsburg, and I'm like, I love that neighborhood. That's my fucking neighborhood. So I'm on Craigslist and I'm looking for something that is in my budget. I think the cap was like $700 or something. And I remember seeing this ad. There were two pictures. It legitimately looked haunted. Like, it was so terrifying looking. I remember my friend who I was staying with, he was like, you're not going to see that place. Like, no. And I was like, well, the price is right. Like, it's looking cute to me. So I go
vision.
there.
I have vision.
I was like, and they barely, you couldn't even get a sense of the space. It was just like they took a photo of like the brick wall. Like, it just looked frightening. And then I showed up, and this woman is showing me the space. The walls didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. So basically, it's like they took it like sheetrock, which is like 8 feet tall, right? So it was just like sheetrocked. It didn't go all the way to the ceiling, so it just was like a hodgepodge like room. And you go in, and the whole thing was graffitied. Like, the whole thing had like kind of like Burning Man messages, like lotus flowers. Like, it was like live, laugh, love vibes. And I just remember being like, this'll work for me. I'll take it. I was like, how much is it? And then I was like, is it 24 hours? It was a studio. It was a studio. It wasn't
like
for
a one
live.
bedroom. Yeah. Oh, I see.
No, yeah, it was just a working studio. But I was like, is it 24-hour access?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. And I was like, does the bathroom have a shower? Like,
because my clients are going to come in.
They might need to shower. And I was like, word, okay. So basically, I rented this unit. They obviously promised that they would fix up the walls and stuff like that.
Sure.
But my thing was like, I'll just rent it, pretend that it's my workspace, but I'm actually going to live and work out of this space. So, and it looked nice. It was this tiny, it was a little bit bigger than this room, but I had very little things. I had a little kitchenette, and then I had a futon. Behind the futon, I was hiding 2 plastic bins of my clothes. I had a rolling rack, which had my jackets that I was actually using. If you saw it, it was very minimal, and it could pass as a workspace.
Yeah.
And one day, Jacob, our landlord, he comes in and he's like, he knocks on the door. He's like, I know you're living here. And I was like, what do you, no, I just love working. What are you talking about? He's like, the guy in the back is moving out. Like, so basically there were 3 units in that basement. The front unit and the back unit were apartments, obviously illegal dwellings, but And so he didn't want another person living in the basement because those were illegal already. I think he was capped off on the illegal activity.
There's a limit.
There's a limit. There's a cap.
Yeah. He has morals after all.
Yeah.
And then, so he's moving out if you want to take it. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm not living here, but I will look at that space. Like you've piqued my interest. So anyway, I go have a look, and I ended up signing a lease to that space. So now I was living and working there. But that joint was $900, I remember. And what's funny is, so I lived there for about 11 months. No windows. My hair did not grow because I was not getting vitamin D. Like, it was genuinely just a cave.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it was such a it aided me in my growth because I was just desperate to build my book, my portfolio. So I would shoot all these projects and then retouch it myself, which I don't. I'm not a good retoucher. I don't do that anymore. But back in the day, it's like you got to be like full service, like do everything you can.
Yeah.
But I would literally I would look at the clock and be like, it's 5 a.m. Like, what the fuck? Like, because I just lost track of time because I was in a fucking basement and I didn't see the outside world.
Oh shit.
So it's funny because I actually ended up working so much, but not being cognizant of it. So eventually I moved out, and then and when I moved out, I subletted that $900 apartment. I put it on Airbnb. You got to hustle. You feel me?
Yeah.
So, and then Jacob calls me and he's like, "Hey, your old studio, which was the smaller place that I was like illegally living in." He's like, "That place is empty. Do you know anybody who wants to take that workspace?" And I was like, maybe I want to take it. Maybe I'm ready for like a workspace. So I was subletting the space in the back that I moved out of. I was now in an apartment with windows, right?
Nice.
In another building, right? And then I took that middle space that I was living and working out of as my studio. Then the front space, Jacob calls me and he's like, "That guy is moving out. Do you know anybody who would want to take it?" And I go, maybe I should expand the space. So at some point, I had the lease to all those 3 units, and the front unit and that middle unit, like I knocked the wall down and I made it a big studio. So I think that's maybe what you remember.
Yeah, maybe, because I remember you described it as being smaller than this room. I was like, I remember it being the biggest room there.
Right. So you saw it. You saw that. So
yeah.
It's so funny because that basement was, it was like the physical, almost like physical proof of progress.
Yeah.
You could see your growth there.
You could really, it was a place of growth. And so it's funny, like that basement is like, but look at you. Like, I mean, I think about like, we're talking about your crazy, like sort of secret hiding spot, like space that was down the hall from that space. And now you have this gorgeous, like insanely amazing studio with like two of them. And this is the second one. This is your extension, but like there's like 6 rooms in here, or like there's like rooms upon rooms in this space.
I got lost.
Yeah. It's
kind of crazy
amazing.
To think we came from that little.
That's what I'm saying. It's amazing.
Corner.
Yeah. But at the time, that little hellhole that we were in was the coolest thing.
It really fucking was. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this, you have to like really like acknowledge like you've grown so much since that time. Like this is amazing. This studio is sick. You're only seeing one corner of it. There's so much going on.
I appreciate
oh my God.
plug.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Honestly, I think it's amazing to see the growth that happens, and for creators out there that are like in the moment in their little studio now, that if they're listening to this, it's like keep pushing, keep going, and like find your outlet, right? And like you will grow over time. And I'm curious how did you go from the studio and grinding to now working on some major projects?
It's important to put into perspective like that I have been doing this for so long. Mm-hmm, like it definitely wasn't like an overnight thing. I feel like, so in 2017, I got signed with an agency. Back then it was called Lens, and Lens is no more, but it was with IMG.
Okay.
And that's where I met my former agent, Felix. Shout out to Felix, who is like the illest agent ever, like just the most wonderful human being. But like, I felt like I grew a lot with her because she was someone who knew her shit. She had been at all the major fashion agencies. And so I just really was in good hands. Yeah, I think getting repped was the beginning of like maybe understanding what you could charge. I mean, I wasn't like, that was shout out to Felix because she was asking for crazy rates and but because she knew what like how much things should cost, what usage should look like for, how long those images are running or so.
And you were still doing just photo at the time?
I was doing both.
Okay.
I was doing both. I was doing both. So basically, I think 2013 is when I did my first fashion film.
Okay.
But when I got here, it was strictly photography. But I had this like yearning in my heart because I'm like my first love. Like I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, a director. Like I knew that in my body when I was like 14. I was like, this is what I am meant to do. So what I did was every time I had a job, like a lookbook or something, I would convince the clients like, hey, like, let me just throw in like a video. Let me just like, we're already shooting. Like, let me just do this. And so we'd shoot something with my 5D, and just that was kind of the start of like, just like making more work just to build the reel. And yeah, so by the time I got signed, I was doing both. Now I'm doing primarily directing and photography. So I'm maybe 90% directing and like photography is like supplemental. I still love it. But yeah, I'm mainly directing it at this juncture.
That's wild.
I was gonna ask, like, how did you go about, that like, we're talking about the stages of how did you get to some of these amazing projects? How did you find that agent, or did your agent find you? How is that like that push?
Dude, that was a blessing from the universe. Just because I just fell into really good hands. I feel. I was, at the time, there was another company that was that got acquired by IMG, and they were trying to build out an agency. And I was signed by them. And like a few months into that, it wasn't very fruitful. And I think they realized, and they were actually a production company. And then they realized like, holy shit, like we have too much work like to do. We can't actually focus on developing artists. So what ended up happening was they reached out to Lens and said, hey, we have this one artist, or I think they were like, we have these 5 artists that we signed. Do you want to like talk to any of them? I got really lucky that they basically were like, okay, let's see what she can do. We kind of had this like dating period where we were trying to figure out it, like, do I have the chops, or like, like, yeah. So they were we were working together, but I wasn't on the website just yet, kind of thing. Like, and if, obviously if it didn't work out, then it didn't work out. And there were 2 or 3 agents in the company. And Felix was like one of the founders, and I got paired up with Felix. And I didn't know Felix's background, but Felix was the most senior agent of the whole group. And so, I just got really lucky that I got paired up with somebody who understood me and was just nurturing for my whole career. And now if I were to enter go to another agency, I would know questions to ask. I would know exactly what to look for. I would know my needs. I didn't know that back then. So that's why I feel so grateful and lucky, because I could have been paired up with somebody who kind of didn't really care about sort of like nurturing my career.
What are those needs, those things that you're talking about right there? Like can we elaborate a little bit on those?
Sure. I would encourage anybody who's looking for an agent or has an agent now to have a close relationship to your agent. Like Felix and I, like, we could talk on the phone for an hour easily, any day, any fucking day. Like, we could talk on the phone for at least an hour just because we just like each other as humans. We have just so much to... So having that close connection, I wouldn't want an agent who doesn't get me on a soul level. I think that that personal connection is so important, because I feel like that gets lodged in the brain, and they know when a project comes in intrinsically that if it's for you or not.
Yeah.
I would encourage. I would want to look for an agent that is like always respectful of sort of like what I am trying to pursue or do. Like there was never a job that I just got booked on without me being asked first.
Cool.
And there was never a job really where like I was told like, you know, I would advise against it or you have to take this. Like it was always like presenting me with the details,
options, yeah.
And then it's
Scope,
like, what do you think? You know? So it was always like, I always kind of I always felt like I had agency, which is important as an artist because you have to know yourself and like your values and like you that needs to be pretty strong in you.
Yeah.
And so otherwise you're just fucking confused and like getting overtaken by the industry.
I feel like that's more common.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's way more common. I've been on many jobs where I'm like, how did you get this job? And then it's also like, you don't seem to fit this job.
Like,
it's like
why
you
are
just
you
got
doing it?
placed here.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
your agent was like, oh, this is them, and then push them into it. And they're like, and then you see like the fighting and like the fighting with the creative, and then.
Right. And I see that a lot with models too. Like talent doing jobs that they're just
Not right for.
comfortable with or like not into. And that's a lot of the times just because they're just getting pushed
shuffled
yeah.
into the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's great when the artist has that opportunity to really see if that project fits.
Absolutely.
And it makes it more difficult because I feel like there's some artists that are also just trying to get in the game,
Yes.
right? So in a way, is that hurting an artist, right? If you're like, you know, if you're an artist coming in, you're like, oh, I just want to do this job because I get the exposure, but could it be bad exposure? Could it be the fact that you're going like, oh, I'm gonna do this, but I'm, like you're saying, it's just not the right fit. How'd you get this job? And in a way, it's hurting you.
Right. I think it depends. There's so much work out there that it has to do with identity politics, like pride campaigns, Black History Month stuff, and all that. And it's like this might be a tangent, but you've made me think about this, which is I feel like we as directors and creative directors should know when it's our place or not to be doing a certain job. Like straight people still do pride campaigns. Why are straight directors doing pride campaigns? To me, it doesn't make sense as a queer person because this is my month. And like, how could you understand my experience to the point of directing something? I think we do have to be like, it's not my place. Like, thank you so much for offering me that job. But here are some other queer directors that you can reach out to, you know? And so I feel like, yeah, I think there are some jobs where it's like, it should be a clear no for some people to like not take it. But it still happens.
Can I ask, do you feel like that's like kind of a blanket thing for any queer campaign, or do you think if it comes down to like what the campaign is about? Because just to kind of play devil's advocate here,
sure.
I would say that like a director's role for the purest form is to do their best version of interpreting a story and getting an emotional response from the audience, right?
Yeah.
But there is definitely like there's a line there that they should know when to bow out. So I'm curious, is like, do you feel like that's a blanket thing, or is it like a project to project kind of thing?
I'm gonna say it's a blanket thing,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why. So, I got asked to pitch on a Black History Month campaign, and this was actually during a very busy. I was shooting in London, and it was really busy, and I remember getting this email, and I didn't get to read through the full deck because I was like in the middle of a very intense commercial that I was shooting. But I love the agency and I love the client, the brand. So I was like, just sifted through it, and I was like, yeah, let's take this meeting. Sick, right? And then we're on the meeting, and I'm like, oh fuck, it's a Black History Month thing, right? Like, because I literally had not digested it genuinely.
Yeah.
And I immediately felt uneasy about this, taking on this pitch. But I'm on this meeting, and I'm taking up these people's time, and I'm like, gutturally, like I just instinctively was like, this is great. Like I'll pitch on this. And then when it was time to pitch, I was like, I shouldn't do this. And this is why. And I told them this on the call. I don't come from this experience. So as a director, like I'm happy to be like the vessel that helps you light this stuff, and like I'm here to help express the stories that we need to build through camera movement and action. But I was like, I would be leaning on you to tell me what exactly the kind of like joy and like human connections you want to bring out into this, because this is not my experience. And they obviously appreciated that. Now, when it got down to pitching, I was like, but here's the problem. There's typically on a commercial, there's 3 directors pitching, right? Why am I taking the 3rd slot to pitch on this job where a black director could be getting paid for it? You feel me? Like, so it's like, this isn't my lived experience. And at the end of the day, someone else could be getting paid for this. How bad would I feel if I got hired doing that job as a person who's not black? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I think, especially because it's a Black History Month project, right? Yeah. I think if it was another, it could be another project, not specifically like for instance, like if there was a project with queer people in it, but it's not a pride thing. You don't have to be gay to direct that or queer to direct that, but specifically, it's like, this is your month.
Yeah,
I'm gonna just
step back.
I'm gonna bow out of this, and like, thank you so much for inviting me to like share my thoughts, but I cannot take this paycheck from someone else. And so I wrote them an email and expressed that, you know, because ultimately, you also have to think about like the paycheck, you know, like this money should not flow to me. This is not even my month. I feel like being asked to treat on that, I got invited to the cookout. You know what I mean? Like, so like that was an honor for me. Like, you know, I genuinely, I was like, this is so cool that you would want me to pitch for this, but it wasn't my place. And I think like us as creatives, we need to know when we need to step back. Again, just because like let's say all of the talent is women, it doesn't mean the director needs to be a woman. But if it's International Women's Day, maybe make it a woman director.
Like, let me step back.
Do you feel me?
But isn't that kind of like on them a little bit too? Like,
it's something that people should think about.
They're coming up with these concepts, right? Like the agency or something.
Yeah.
They're coming up with these concepts. They should be conscious of optics and conscious of all these things.
Sure. I think it is. I think because the creative team was primarily black, I think they have the authority to say, you know, she's not black, but she could probably do it. Let's see what she's got. I think they do have the authority. It would be more weird if the creative team didn't come from the experience. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
100%.
Like, no. As like, let's say, like,
you can say it. They're all like white people doing.
Like, if it was like, you know what I mean? Like,
because we've seen it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think they have every right to like reach out to whoever they want. But then it comes back to us as like to step in and be like, I'm so honored, but like, you know, I shouldn't take this. I shouldn't take this on.
And by doing that, you know, I can tell already the integrity of how you grew up as an artist and you finding your agent. What's that next step? Like, how did you make the full transition to the now directing?
So let's see. I think so. When I got signed, that was kind of the era when we started seeing. I think maybe even a year or two before that, we were just starting to see way more video projects, right? Like, because of Instagram. And so like, it wasn't just about photography. All of a sudden you saw a lot of these fashion photographers, like basically needing to learn how to direct because video content was so needed, right? So I think it was just at the time that the agency that I got signed with, the whole thing of that agency was everybody was kind of a multidisciplinary artist. And so, I kind of just would get asked inquiries for either or. And I think it's just been what I've been focused on, like the passion has kind of pointed me more so into directing. And so I think it's just kind of like, it was just like a natural progression.
So when you work for yourself, right, you deal with yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And when you have representation and an agent, you now have to deal with other bodies, other like, you know, roles, right? It's not just, you're not just a director anymore. You're not working like you talked about, like with a creative director, and you're working with the client. So I'm curious to know like what that work was probably for you, like beforehand. It was like, oh, I can just kind of, I'm doing the touch-ups myself. But now with an agency, they're like, no, we have a person that does touch-ups. So like, how does that work creatively in that relationship, right? And like, what are those bodies?
Yeah. So I think when I got signed, the level of work, definitely, it was like higher level stuff. The clients were higher level clients. The brands had more money. And then obviously the rates were proper. Whereas before I had an agent and I was just willy-nilly like, I'll do this for this much. Like, you know, like it just, there was no, I didn't have an understanding of like usage or, you know, nor did I have the ability to sort of express that to any of my clients to be like, sure, like, we'll shoot this lookbook, but like you can only use the images for a year. Like what? I would have never put my foot down to do things like that. But with an agent in an agency, especially when you're like, they inquire and you're like, I'm CCing my agent here. And it's like an IMG email. It's like very sexy. And it's like, it's also like this immediate, like, oh, I can't take advantage of you. Right. So I think the agency brought a level of protection, which was wonderful. A level of, I would say even clout, like knowing, like, you know, it's like any of the big models, like based on where you're signed, it's sort of like, that's the level that you're at. Right. Yeah. So it definitely helped with the optics of how clients could work with me. There was already like sort of like a protection around me. Because clients love to throw in some random thing, and it's like, honey, that's not in the scope, and if you want that, you can. Here's an extra line item if you want that. And then as far as the work, what's funny is, and I talked to a lot of creatives, stylists, makeup artists, all of my friends before I got signed. I was like, because I was nervous because I didn't know what that would mean, because I went from being freelance, feeling really free and just kind of like going with emotions. And I'm like, what does it mean to be signed? Like, am I going to feel like I have a full-time job now? And they were like, girl, you still have to get all your jobs. Like, they were like, be prepared to still get all of your own work. All this, it's not one of those things you sign a contract and all of a sudden you're like fucking working every day.
Yeah, you made it.
Yeah, everything is still very much based on your reputation. And like, it's still very word of mouth. Like that hasn't really changed. But certainly I think visibility in the industry was like I was just a bit more visible.
But it probably also opens doors for you, like to certain clients, right? But also certain talent. Because I remember
definitely,
like we weren't in the same basement anymore, but I was definitely following you on Instagram. I remember going on Instagram one day and like scrolling this total name drop, but I was like, oh shit, did you do a spot with Megan Thee Stallion?
Oh yeah,
what the fuck? Like this is crazy. And then I like
Megan, I love you, Megan.
And then like I look at like your followers, like wait, Christelle has like fucking 20,000 followers, and what the fuck's going on? Like is she like super famous now? This is crazy. Like it's definitely like a leg up, right? But like it gives you access to more high profile talent too, right?
This is true. That's very true. I think especially with like celebrity talent, right? Like their label is not gonna just, I mean they still do, but I think they're gonna go through an agency to try and find talent.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's very true.
It's like a trust thing.
Yes.
Like this agency's repping you, they can trust you.
Yes.
To deliver.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
If you're in the industry and you feel like you're getting really good and you're working hard, what is a good rate that you think is a good range for them?
Okay, so it depends. It all depends on the job. It depends on the usage, and it depends on the client. It's really tough to say. Okay, first of all, let me speak on the different rates between photography and directing. Photography makes so much money. It's funny that my passion is directing. But basically, directors, for people listening out there who don't know this, directors, it's a full buyout when you do a commercial. You just get paid for the project and move on, and that's it. And if they run the commercial longer than what was scoped, it's a full buyout. So you don't get paid more money. However, if you're the talent, if you're, let's say, the model in front of the screen, if they continue to run it extra years or whatever, you're getting residuals from that. So that's really interesting. I have friends from spots that I've directed who made real good money because they ran it like for 2 years instead of like the 1 year. And like, shout out to them, like, love that for them. With photography, you get whatchamacallit? Why am I'm blanking because
licensing or like usage or
usage rates.
Yeah. Usage, exactly. So you get usage. The more they use it, they have to pay you for it. So you actually, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Or even like different places they use it, right? Like,
absolutely, different territories, all of that. Exactly. Whereas with directing, it's a one-stop shop. That's it. And it's so funny because it's way more time consuming. It's way more time. There's like the pre-pro and then the post-production. Like, you're on a job for so long to get paid that one sum of money. With photography, you have maybe one meeting before the job. You show up, you shoot it, and then it goes into retouching, which, like, it's so fucking easy, right? I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. But
if you're talking about like
the hours
directing something versus just like doing a photo shoot,
bruh.
I've shot enough photo shoots like behind the scenes where I'm like, it's so fucking easy compared. Yeah. So even if we're talking about commercial directing in the same space.
Yes.
Like in a white studio, it's so fucking easy to shoot photos.
It's such a trip. And I do jobs where I do both, where I'll direct the commercial and then I'll shoot the stills. And it's funny. And I'm always happy to do that. But the stills, if they get reused, I'm like, yes, fuck yes. You know, if they get if they get more, you know, more mileage, it's always lovely because
that's pretty good though.
That's quite nice.
That's a good hustle.
Yeah, so that's nice. Yeah. So actually, that's
you reversed your hustle.
I was just literally thinking. You just made me think of that. I'm just getting that light bulb moment right now.
You were a photographer hustling video, and now you're doing video hustling photography.
Yeah. Yo, that's
New passion.
that's sick. Whoa, full circle, as we were just talking about. That's
So,
crazy.
A couple times you mentioned as a director, just like in this conversation alone, like how you have to do pre-pro books and like there's like 3 directors that are like vying for a job. What is that process, right? Like what is that step-by-step like guideline for someone that's trying to be a director and like get a job
in the commercial world?
In a commercial world, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, commercials are typically a triple bid. So that means there's 3 directors that are bidding on a commercial. An agency or an organization called Free the Work actually did an amazing job of getting a lot of companies to sign that they would at least involve one woman in that triple bid. So it's pretty universal now across most, like, basically just about every company that I've pitched for, like big giant conglomerates, like they abide by this rule, which is amazing. And all they're asking for is one woman out of the 3 directors, or one person out of the 3 directors be a woman. And so that's been really good. But anyway, it's called a triple bid. Once in a while, a job will come in and it's called a single bid. That basically means it's a company that's like, well, we really just kind of want to work with you, but you still have to pitch for it. Single bids are obviously like amazing because you already know you got the job, right? With photography, it's similar. Like photography, if you have an email and they're asking you for your dates, you already have the job. Like you're not gunning against another photographer. You just get the job, you know? And then with directing, you have to pitch against other people. So at that stage, you would then take on a meeting with a creative agency. So there's you, the director, and you likely have a production company behind you. Mine is Groundwork. Shout out to Groundwork. So that's you. You're here. Then there's the creative agency who reached out to you, right? You then have a meeting. They give you the whole brief, like, here's what we're thinking. You're looking at a deck together. They're explaining essentially what the brief is, what they're dreaming of, like, creatively, and kind of what they're seeking a director to, like, distill for them. And then you have the client who that creative agency is working directly with. So they've already interfaced for however many months or a year or whatever to figure out what this commercial is going to be about. The client green lights it, right? They come to an agreement. They're like, yeah, that sounds like a sick plan. And then they go out and looking for the director that can hopefully carry it out. So those are like the three bodies essentially. And then at that point, you have like 5 days to come up with like the most genius idea ever. And sometimes it's less. It is. I mean, if I've ever gotten a week, that would be like a luxury. It's so, everything is always like, can you give this to us yesterday?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten 3 days on a pitch. I've gotten like, they're absolutely
3
insane.
3 days is a lot. 3 days is like a week.
It's crazy. It's kind of fucked. It's kind of fucked.
Yeah, they're like, you have 72 hours.
Yeah. Can you go back in time?
And we just called you, like, out of the blue.
Literally.
Here we go.
And like come up with the best way to do this.
It's like my favorite. It's like, it's Friday. Can you get us something by like
Monday?
And you're just like,
bruh.
Those aren't real hours.
And like, I think, so what goes into a pitch, right, is like, I have a writing partner. I have a couple different writing partners. And then I have treatment designers. And I have a few different treatment designers I like to work with based on like what it should look like. But I've kind of gotten my team down and we all just vibe well together and it's really amazing. But it is like, what I think is funny about it is like, obviously my team is getting paid, right? But as a director, you don't get paid to treat. So like you come up with the idea and you are in your pajamas for 5 days straight, like fucking writing and like, you know,
pouring your
like
soul out.
eating Uber Eats, like you know, just pouring your soul out, like coming up with these fucking genius ideas. But you as a director, you don't get paid for this treatment process. So I think that's kind of a shitty thing about the industry. Like, I feel like if you're going to engage 3 directors, at least give them an honorarium. I think that would be nice. Like, even if it was $500, like that would be nice.
Something for their time.
Yeah. Because like my team, they get paid per day, you know, and they get paid well. So it's like, it's thousands of dollars every time I pitch.
They get paid, and your team, is it from your agency? Like, who are they getting paid for? Is that you personally?
They're either getting paid from me or they're getting paid from the production company that I'm working with. Yeah.
Wow. So that's like that's a real gamble on yourself.
Absolutely.
To go like,
yeah.
I'm gonna
absolutely
pitch this and pay them and
and it's a gamble for the production company too, because they're like, all right, let's do it. Like we have we have like 2 days with the designers. We have a day and a half with the writer or 2 days, like, and they're getting paid their rates.
Wow.
But as the director, as me, I'm not getting paid for shit.
And this is,
but I've committed my time.
I feel like this is also like why production budgets sometimes are like so crazy, because it's like they're essentially like they're putting that bid in, and if they buy it, it could be covering like the last 4 pitches that they didn't win on.
Sure.
So it's like if they were just to pay you to pitch to them, like they're already like, we want you. We're just going to give you a little bit of money to do it. And it kind of like alleviates that pressure of like needing to like make the next.
Yeah,
I know.
And it also, I feel like you're right. It just helps so that you don't feel like you're trying to eat for your next, like work for your next meal.
Yeah, that's if you've lost the last 4 pitches, you're gonna really like try to make this one work. You know,
it can be very frustrating. Because of the financial and mental investment that you're putting into all these pitches, and of course. Absolutely, if you don't have the resources, if you don't have a production company behind you, you can do it all yourself, which I used to do that. I used to do everything by myself. I was laying everything out in Google Slides and writing everything by myself. again, no sleep because I don't have a team and it's just me. I'm not a fucking graphic designer. I'll do my fucking best, but I've won like high level jobs doing all that by myself. You know, I have, but also the busier you get, you do need a team behind you, and obviously it just helps with working more efficiently. The way that my designers can express like the vision through graphic design is way beyond my ability, you know, to tinker on Google Slides.
Yeah, you're trying to focus on the creative aspect
correct.
of it.
On the storytelling. Yeah.
And it's really hard if you're on another job and you get this offer.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah. And some of my writing partners, they've told me that they have some directors that they work with, and this is not me because I'm super hands-on, but that they've worked with directors who like literally either they've never spoken to, they've just gotten the brief and they're just being told, go write, or they will have like one brief meeting, but there's like they just write the thing and then they either win it or they don't, which is I think that's wild, but also I guess I could see a world where you could get so fucking busy and something comes in and you're kind of just like, as a director, maybe you're just like, roll the dice, bro. Like, I don't have time to even think about this, but shit, like if you're going to pay for this shit, like,
fuck it.
You know, fuck it. Get this person. They know my personality. They know what I like. And
I've done this shit before. Like, it could also be that like, oh, I've done like 3 of these already. So I know exactly how to do this, how to execute this.
Like, you know, I think about like Spike Jonze or something. Like, I love Spike Jonze. But like that man is probably doing so much high level shit, and he's probably inundated with people wanting him to pitch on stuff, you know, or you know, whatever. Replace Spike Jonze with any other like super fucking busy director right now. Actually, don't know what Spike Jonze is working on at the moment, but
you never know till you see it, and then it's like the next big thing on Apple. Or something.
Right, exactly. But take any very high level director, you know, like you don't like they're probably like working on some fucking crazy around the world project, and they might not even be in a place where they have reception because they're filming in like some fucking cave or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, I think there probably is a world where you would get too busy to be able to be hands-on.
I think when you get to that level too, you're probably, because the offers are coming in so much, you're probably looking for something that's more fulfilling, right? Like something that you really want to sink your teeth into, because it's like, if I'm going to spend the next 72 hours writing this pitch, I kind of have to really care about the concept, right? To kind of put something, especially if, well, maybe Spike Jonze is getting an honorarium, but like, you know what I mean? Like to put this work in before I actually get the job, like there has to be something I want. So
that's true.
Because like as a director, if you're not getting paid for that and you're getting paid for the job, then the work is the payment.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the product is like what's going to get me the next thing. And so like this is why I think like on set the directors, usually like the best ones, are always fighting the hardest for like their vision. You know what I mean? So I'm actually curious like what that's been like for you as a director coming in, like fighting for your vision with like a creative director that's been on something for months and you've only had like 72 hours of prep, but like you have a very specific vision and you have to satisfy the client. Like
different
there has to be like horror stories in there, I'm sure.
Oh boy oh motherfucking boy. Yo, so I've had so many wonderful jobs collaborating with the most wonderful creatives who let me do my thing, and I'm super chill, like I'm very collaborative. I have been on jobs with psychotic creative directors. And unfortunately, like it happens to be a role. I think any sort of like directorial role, whether that's, you know, being a film director or being like a creative director or I think a lot of directorial roles do tend to come with a lot of ego. And so I've had jobs with some nightmare creative directors that either like they're so close to the project because they've been working on it for however many months before it even got to me, who don't feel like they want to give their baby up, you know? And it's not like you're giving your baby up. Like, it's just now I then have to create a commercial out of this, right? So I've had, like creative directors that have just been way too helicoptery. And then, but beyond that, I've also worked with incredibly toxic people, which is why I got an emotional support animal. Mayo, where is Mayo?
She's napping off frame.
Oh,
right
she's
now.
napping.
She heard her
Oh
name.
my
There
God.
she
Hey
is.
girl. Hey girl.
Let's say hi.
Hey girl.
Yeah, she's gonna stretch a bit.
Yeah.
Is she gonna get
come up?
Is she coming up?
Come on up,
So a couple years ago, I had this job, and it was like this crazy high level like travel job, and we went to like 4 different cities, and this creative director was just so mean to everybody and made everyone cry. Everyone, the EP cried, like everybody on the production team cried. I didn't cry, but I was. I didn't cry. No, I didn't cry because I was disassociating, and that's what I do when I get traumatized. But I was like, I'm this close to like, it broke me. It broke my ego. It broke my sanity. And when I got home from that job, I was like, I need a dog. I need a dog. I need a dog. And anyway, I adopted Mayo after that to kind of soothe me, and that's how I got this cute dog, and she's amazing.
So what do you do to build that trust with your creative directors? Is it even possible? Have you had success doing that, or is it always a battle where you feel like this person will just helicopter the whole time?
I sort of try not to engage so much in problematic behavior. So there's a world where like I could maybe use psychology to be like, I'm going to kill them with kindness, or like I'm going to, but the time is so short to make a project that to me, I would rather not get into the mental games and like try and figure this person out. My body just like, I'm like, as much as I can distance myself from you, but get my work done, that's kind of how I work. If I'm in a problematic situation, because the time to make something is so like, once it's going, like we're in production, like, bitch, we're shooting in 3 days. Like I don't have the time to like try and get you to trust me. Like, I just need to do my job. So as long as I'm hitting the goalposts and like, then we good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
No.
yeah, I just kind of have to hope and pray that I don't wind up with crazy.
Do you have any crazy stories you'd be willing to tell and share? No names needed.
Yeah.
Or drop the names. Fuck it.
Fuck 'em.
Bleep them out.
Never work again in this industry. That's it. It's over for you.
Let's see.
Little did you know she was coming back with a vengeance.
Yeah. This is the cancel episode. No, I'm fucking around. No.
Cancel.
No, I mean my biggest. I might fuck with a beer.
You want a beer?
My fear about having a beer is that I'll burp on this.
Oh,
but we can edit that shit out.
Turn
We're all
it all,
professionals
trust
here.
me.
We've had guests and hosts
Give me your
just
beer.
burp on screen. It's totally
Look
fine.
at that.
Pro
Yeah.
Christelle.
Thank you so much.
Pro.
That sounded so nice, like in the earpiece.
Thank you.
I would love to urge creative agencies that are working on a project that involves identity politics of any sort, if the creative team or the creative director is not from that lived experience, to just hire a consultant to join the creative team. That's it. It's not we got to scrap this team and bring in a new team. It's not you got to lose your job because this is a spot about like Women's International Day.
International Women's Day.
International Women's Day.
It comes from the guy that always fucks up the words. I got it right this time.
Right, but let's say like the whole creative team was men. How could that team possibly
Not consult a woman.
a woman? Right. Females.
I'm so bad. I'm so bad.
No.
I learned my lesson from the last podcast, 2 podcasts ago. So I'm like, women.
Good call back.
Yeah. So I think like I would love to urge creative agencies to just hire a consultant to join at the highest level. I mean, like they become a creative director alongside with the creative director on the team. I think that is so necessary. Like you know what I mean? Like I just, I think that's important.
What would the consultant do? Just basically walk in and be like, this can't have, like, you need more women representation.
Well, I think it's just inviting another creative director on the team to work alongside with the existing creative director and the existing team to be at the same level, not below, but at the same.
I think that's the trick is like at the same level.
At the same level. Yeah.
Because it's like, it's easy to we're bringing in someone in, but like the creative director still super.
No, it's got to be the same level. Like, so it's not like, we just brought this person as a diversity hire for this thing so that we could put their name on the fucking credits. No,
that is everywhere.
Yeah, that is everywhere.
There's a lot of that's needed around set, and I think we're getting more of that. Like I know actor friends of mine that are like an intimacy coach is also important.
Right?
That's so important to have them on set. So this actually makes a lot of sense from executive or creative executive standpoint, like having someone that is also there to help coach you.
It makes sense from like just the same level though. It's very important because that means that
they
creative
have
director,
the agency, they have the authority, you know, and they apparently, like, as far as I'm concerned, they have the most authority if that's their lived experience. So it's like, let's say we were a creative team and working on a spot about disability, and like there are invisible disabilities. I don't know if any of you are disabled in any way, but let's just say none of us were. Would it be right for us to like create a brief on like
what it's like to be
what it's like to be, because if that's not our lived experience, then there's so much storytelling that we can't tell because it's not even in our brains, in our minds, in our experience. So like to be able to invite a creative director to join us at the same level, at the highest level, to teach us, quite frankly, you know, like what that experience might look like, you know?
And I think you'll get better engagement from the commercial or the ad, right?
Well, because it's more holistic.
It's more holistic. It's more truthful.
It's more authentic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to weed out a lot of assholes in the industry, too.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Sure.
So many assholes.
Yeah, if they're like, I'm not down with a fucking consultant coming in, then it's like,
oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
so
you're fired.
You're canceled, fired, canceled. But tell us some of those experiences you've had with creative directors on set, like that you've had that are like just horror stories.
So my horror story with the job that I did before I got Miss Mayonnaise was, and this also has to do with like my level of awareness and my strength as a director at the time. I mean, that person was awful, but also I didn't have the guts that I do now. And so I think like if I interface with somebody that toxic, I would move about things differently. But that was my learning lesson at the time. But basically, mind you, this was a job that was shooting in several cities. It was a travel job around the United States. And basically, on the first day of our shoot, this set that had been built out in the studio like the night before, it was like built out, it was painted. This was going to be our first shot, was on this like painted set, right? And it was meant to be like this sort of sandy color, right? And the creative director gets in there and they're like, this is supposed to be beige, this is orange, like, and freaking the fuck out, right? And throughout the whole process of pre-pro, they were not actually around very much. They were going through a personal thing, and so it was mostly their team on the pre-pro conversations and discussions. When it came to figuring out the right paint color for this set, I actually asked their team, I was like, okay, you like this reference? Cool. Give me the shades that you're comfortable with, and then I will talk to my DP and see what is the best shade after lighting will fit this reference that I gave to you that you like. I gave you this reference, you're in love with it, great. So we picked a shade based on my DP's decision, and the set was painted. And then the creative director, I was meeting them pretty much for the first time. And the first thing was, we got to get rid of this set. And it spun my fucking head around because I was just like, what? Like our first shot is on this set and this person is like having a fucking meltdown that it's orange and not beige. And we were like, let us light it for you and then we'll show it to you on the monitor. Like, and then we can make adjustments and like get it down to the exact right shade that you like. But we're quite confident that we can get it to look like the reference. Also, bitch, like your fucking team picked this fucking color, okay? Motherfucker!
Yeah,
okay. Like
I love the two sides of what was going on. What you were saying versus what you were thinking.
The client facing versus what I'm thinking. Right.
Fuck up. Like
Hold the fuck up.
Yeah, right. So at the time, that was that threw me off so much. But here's the thing. This was what I learned from that job. Like, I was a shell of a human because I felt so voiceless on that job. And I felt like, I was like, am I even a good director? Because I don't even feel like I have opinions. But it was because of the way that I was treated, right? I felt powerless. And I also now was, I felt like I couldn't make a decision because my decision was going to be shut down. And then it made me scared to say something that would get rejected. It was this really fucked up mental warfare.
What's that conclusion? Like, how did it end up working out for you on that project?
I had an amazing fucking DP who I fucking love and adore. I don't want to say their name because I feel like people will figure out what job this was.
Okay.
Okay. But
They know.
But I will subliminally just say. And that's all I'm going to say. But my DP had to kind of step up to the plate and make decisions for me when I was just fucking like rattled, basically. And that job wouldn't have come out as well as it looked like if it weren't for them.
Your DP.
So anyway, the lesson I learned was I don't need to have the right idea, ever. I just need to arrive at the best idea. It doesn't need to be my right idea. So if somebody wants to throw out a set that like I've been really pumped on, but like we have a maniacal creative director on set who just like is like into having power and like wanting to do wild performative shit, well then fine. What is the next best idea to execute this thing that we're trying to do? Like, I don't need to be right. That's what I have come to. It's all about just arriving to the best idea. I needed my ego broken to be able to arrive at that. I think before it was like, I want to have the right and best idea. I want to have the best idea and I want that idea to be right. But now it's like, okay, like throw me the curveballs. I don't care. Like based on that curveball, how can we do this in the best way? And so with imposter syndrome, I think like, well, my thing about imposter syndrome is like, I think I've arrived at this place where like, if I'm asked to do something and I don't feel comfortable with it, I tell myself I'm probably being asked because I'm genuinely invited, like because I have the authority and I'm able to do it. I'm uncomfortable to do it because I haven't done it enough.
Yeah.
But the more you do something, the more you get comfortable with it.
That's growth right there.
It is growth. Yeah, it's beautiful. I've had so many different like onstage panel discussions that I've been asked to do like in the past, really like cool ones where I could have met cool people, but I said no to it because I was like, I'm not gonna have anything to say. And like, I'm fucking nervous. And like, what if I sound like an idiot on stage?
Yeah.
And then after that, I got in, like, eventually, like, I did a panel discussion, I think, like, a year or a year and a half ago. Actually, way longer ago. But I was like, am I going to do this again? Am I going to say no? And then I was like, you're being invited because you belong there. So it's one of those things that you have to, like, remind yourself that, like, when you land something, when you've been asked to do something, you're probably being asked because you belong there. It's just this little voice in your head that's telling you, don't do it, like, because you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The discomfort only comes from the lack of practice. You know what I mean?
Or the fear of the challenge and change, right? Like
Yes.
it's pushing you out of your comfort zone.
And that's the thing. We're creatures of habit, right? Like we're just like, this is what we're comfortable, this is what we know, but we don't grow until we push ourselves out of that.
And actually, I think if you are uncomfortable, it's something to lean into, because that means that's a place where you're going to grow.
Yeah.
Because if you're right, like if you're doing everything that's comfortable to you, then you're doing all the same shit.
Yeah.
You're doing the stuff you already know.
Yeah, you do the
Right.
same.
But I also think it's like the whole thing for me is like, the more you know about something, the less you realize you know about something. So like the more I know about this, the more I know how big it is.
Yes.
And then I'm like, wow, I don't know all these like facets of it. But like when you're just starting out, you're like, oh yeah, I can fucking shoot that. Like I can do that. Like it's just like holding the camera.
That's
this
so
way. You're
true.
like, but how do you do that? Why are you doing that? Like,
Right.
The
more you know about something, the more you realize you don't know enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's more
so
to
you
know.
always feel like you're like, maybe I don't know enough about that, but you actually know a ton about it.
Yeah, that's true.
How was that transition from like, you finally went, right? You've been asked to speak.
Yeah.
Now, I think you also teach, right? So
I did.
How was that process like?
I also had imposter syndrome when I got asked to teach. Yes. So this is my first year not teaching, but I taught at Parsons. I taught an intensive at Parsons for 4 springs in a row.
Wow.
And really like fun fucking class. It was under Shelley and Yof, who built the department. Basically, it was an MFA class, a film and photography intensive for MFA fashion students. So I was teaching designers. And
crazy.
it was so fun. And it was like 2 weeks in the spring, and our classes were literally like 7-8 hours a day.
Damn.
Like,
wow.
So fucking long. But we were having so much fucking fun. So basically, this class was designed because essentially, like, all of these students are going to go out there and like they're going to make brands, and then they're going to need to express to the world like what that collection is about, right? Through a lookbook and through like a fashion film. And so it was really to get them to understand sort of like what goes into like how do you express, how do you tell a story through visuals, through a 30-second piece of like what your collection is about, right? So like if you had a collection, let's say that was, I don't know, based on fucking like, I'm pulling this out of my ass, but like, oh, I went to Berlin one time and went to Berghain, and like I just loved like the goth scene, and like this is like a crazy collection like based on that subculture or whatever. It's okay, well then why would you shoot this up? Why are you planning to shoot this upstate? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? And by the way, the students were brilliant. They would never do something like that off. But like, you know, just like having to think about all the details of like, okay, then what do the models look like? Where are we shooting this? And then also like what are our camera like what decisions are we making with camera movement? Like, is this meant to look super sleek and, you know, like, or is it meant to look like almost like really crusty and like, you know, like just
the aesthetic of it.
Yeah. Like, you know, just kind of aiding them, having them think about all of those details visually, like how do you express that? So we did a lot of like looking at different techniques and what the feeling is behind those techniques.
That's awesome.
We did a lot of sharing with each other, like our favorite stuff, which is why like it's crazy to think like, yeah, like literally we'd be in class for that long, but we were it was so enriching. It was super fun, but yeah.
But you said you had imposter syndrome with that. Like, what was that process like?
Yes, because I'm a 2-time dropout. I was like, you want me to teach at Parsons? Like, I was literally like, I was like, me or
you're like, I'm anti all this shit.
Right. I was like, it got to the point where I was like, you guys, I don't have a degree. Like, is this even legal? Like, is this legal? And they were like, we just want to work with somebody who's in the field. Like, we think that that's going to be the most valuable for the students. So we would love to have you. And I was like, well, I told, okay, fine. Like,
yeah, but that's a very valid argument, is like experience versus school.
Sure.
Right. Like,
yeah.
and I feel like you'd go to school and you'll learn some things, but a lot of that, when I've been on set or worked in certain jobs, it's just been like it kind of scrapped that all. And you kind of have to learn from the beginning of everything.
And your class kind of fell in between, where it was like, how do you interpret that now? Like this idea, like of you have this vision, how do you express that vision? How do you execute that vision? Because that is kind of the thing you don't, I mean, from my experience, you don't really learn that. You learn what's in the book, what's been done,
right?
Who are the masters.
You learn theory. You learn theory and history.
But you don't learn the, like, how to actually interpret that.
Practicality.
So you can,
And that's why you need teachers that have been in the field.
Sure.
Because you bridge that theory versus actuality and what's happening together.
Yes. Yeah.
So, very important.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and also just it was fun. And I think the cool thing about teaching is you learn so much from your students. Like, I was their teacher, but it was such an enriching experience for me to like hear what they had to say and like just like see what they were into. Like, it just was such a cool exchange of ideas all the time. So I think like that was also really, really fun for me.
Without knowing anything, I'm sure you were their favorite class.
I hope so.
If they were staying
we
there
had
for
fun.
8 hours a day.
We had fun. There were days where I'd be like, "Oh my God, you guys! Like we need to go," and they'd be like, "One more video, one more." Like, and I'd be like, "Okay, are you sure?" Like, "Okay, fine." Like it genuinely, like it was so much fun.
You were teaching them more like, were you teaching them how to shoot film, right?
No, we shot digital stuff. Oh well, actually, wait. Okay, so. Every year I changed up my curriculum. My last year we worked on a photo book. That was like our big class project together. The first year we did like a photo collage exhibition type thing. Anyway, but my last class I got everybody disposable cameras, and we did a lot of like video research, and we obviously they learned a lot about filmmaking, but for our class project we made a book together, and that they shot film. Nice. Yeah, but with disposable cameras. So it wasn't like teaching them like aperture and shutter, like this is a relationship, but and they were so sick. Like the photography was amazing. Like it's just amazing what teaching is all about. Encouraging. That's all that it is, I think. Yeah. Like, at least like in my experience with this particular class, like the students were already so freaking brilliant and creative. Like, I was just there to be like, you can do that.
Yeah. It's the confidence they need to keep pushing for what they're doing.
That's all that it is. Yeah. It's just like, just do that. Do more of that. Like, oh, like this is working. Like, how about that? Like, you're just a guide, essentially. It's just, that's all that it is.
Cool. So, Christelle, I want to jump back a little bit to the job that was basically responsible for you adopting Mayo.
Yes. My ego death job.
Your ego death job.
Yes.
And I'm curious, like, what you learned from that experience and what that lesson allowed you to do on the next job.
It's funny because I think you don't realize what the lesson is until you're able to apply it. But basically, okay, so I did this job, I think it was 2020. It's a couple of years ago, maybe 2022. And this really sick opportunity, the creative agency with Something Special Studios, it was for Nike, and it was an opportunity to work with Paris Goebel, who is an amazing choreographer, dancer, artist, multidisciplinary human being. And so like she choreographed the Super Bowl. She's choreographer to like Rihanna and literally everyone huge. And it was a massive opportunity. And leading up to that job, there was a lot of prep that had to go, like internal prep that had to go into sort of like crafting what this creative should look like. I was getting briefed both from agency and client side of what they wanted. And basically there was a lot of prep going into the job before I actually got to sort of pitch the idea that I had. But I was fucking nervous to meet her because you never know how it's going to be, like when you, like working with artists, other artists and celebrities, like, you know, like Megan Thee Stallion was fucking amazing, by the way. She's a goddess and so kind and so fun to work with. But there are nerves going into jobs like that because you don't know, are they going to be a diva? Are they going to be difficult? Like, are they going to take direction well? Are they going to be collaborative? Like, you never know what you're stepping into.
Right. Scary.
So that can be really scary. Yeah. And so, mind you, I'd been working internally with Nike and the creative agency for quite some time to just sort of like get me into the headspace of what this sort of creative was meant to look like, because it was announcing Paris as their new ambassador for dance. So Nike was basically carving out. So if you think about like Nike and like they represent all these sports, they were finally announcing and acknowledging that dance is a fucking sport. This was going to be a big announcement to the world, and a really big deal, right? So we finally get on a Zoom. Now it's got Nike, it's got the creative agency on it, and it's the first time I'm meeting Paris, and I'm basically pitching my idea to her. And of course I was fucking nervous because I hadn't met her before. And she very graciously said, you know, I like your references and I like what your ideas are, but this just feels too glossy for me. She's like, this is too glossy. She's like, dance is about vulnerability and it's about like feeling raw. And it's about like, she's like, when I dance, I'm like channeling my ancestors. It's really deep. And this is just too
polished.
Polished. Correct. And I was like, whoa. I was like, you're fucking right. I was like, I didn't know that. And I was like, based on what you're saying, I fucking agree. This is not how I would light what you're saying. Like, this is not how I would express what you've just said. And this is wrong. And I agree. I would have, my head would have spun if I didn't have that horrible experience with the creative director trashing the set and making my whole life like miserable for that 2 weeks, because that whole 2 weeks was me sort of like, my battle with myself was feeling like I can't make any right decisions. I'm so horrible at this, yada, yada, yada. When I got to that Nike job, and sort of like, and Paris like not vibing with this thing that I worked really hard on, it wasn't about me though. It's like, I actually just want to tell your message in the best way possible. And if that's how you interpret dance, this is for sure not it. Because I was basically, I prepared something that felt very music video-ish, very glossy, very like, it just wasn't capturing the depths and the rawness and like the soul of what dance needs, that dance is about, really.
And your pitch wasn't a reflection on you in the sense of like, you know, how you would captivate this. It was just in that perspective of what you thought it should be.
Correct.
And as soon as you were able to see, oh, this is not, I can go back now and reimagine this whole thing.
Now that I was speaking to the source and seeing what she wanted from it, I was like, you're fucking right. And like, I'm not even going to battle you on that. Like, I agree. And like, how can, like, let's do that. Like, let's arrive at that.
And what's that next step look like once you've had that conversation with her?
So what ended up happening was I had to make a whole other pitch right after that, which was, I think it was none of us expected to do that, but I was so delighted to do that because I wanted to arrive at the best idea. And so it wasn't about like, oh, you fucked up and you did the wrong thing and you pitched like, you pitched the wrong thing. It was just like, I actually fucking agree. Like, this is not, like, if I heard those words from your mouth before I started this, it actually wouldn't have come up with this creative. Yeah. Now that I know exactly what you want, like, let's get to that. And I think that really started like a really beautiful working relationship between the two of us because she felt heard and she felt understood, and it created trust between us and my DP, and we worked together on like the right script, and there was just like a newfound working relationship that came out of that, because I could just so quickly be like, dude, you're fucking right. Like, this ain't right. This ain't it. And so once that happened, I knew, I was like, that was the lesson. That was the lesson. It's like, it's not about being right. It's like, fuck your ego, dude. Like, you don't have to be right. You just have to like be willing to arrive at the best thing.
Yeah, exactly. Was there also something about the way that she expressed that might have actually helped you have that?
Well, she also wasn't toxic about it, you know. So she wasn't like, fuck your idea. She was like, I see what you're going for, and I like that stuff, but it's not the right things for this.
Yeah.
So yes, so that definitely had something to do with it. I mean, if she was like, you're garbage, goodbye, like, I would have been like, okay, I'm gonna get another dog.
Just 50 dogs following you around.
Just, if you see me with more than one dog, please check in on my health. Please call me. If you have my number, text me, call me.
You have a dog farm upstairs.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
She's doing all these fucked up jobs.
She's like moonlighting as a dog trainer now. It's like really interesting. But so that was a cool lesson. Yeah.
So that's like the beginning of a situation where you kind of have to scrap it and start over and think on your feet. Have you had any of those on set where, you know, something doesn't go right and you're like, oh shoot, how do I get creative and to get the shot you need, right? Like the vision you have.
Or even thinking back to your days and like, you know, your studio in
like
the
having
basement.
to be scrappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just scrappy.
So I did this fashion film with skaters, and the whole thing was like it was like women skating, and they were wearing this brand called Slow and Steady Wins the Race, and it's designed by a friend of mine. And what was asked of me was, Kathleen Hanna has given us a song. Kathleen Hanna is the front woman of Le Tigre, and she's just like a sick, like fucking feminist icon. But basically, we got to use a song, but we had to use a whole song. So it wasn't like a 30-second spot. Like, it had to be like, I think maybe it was like 2.5 minutes or something. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like no big deal. Okay,
What?
So now we're making we're basically making a music video. Basically.
Yeah.
And this was the days of the basement. And everything in my life was about being scrappy and resourceful. I was like, how the fuck am I going to follow all of these women on skateboards throughout the city, like skating throughout Brooklyn, on the Brooklyn or on the Williamsburg Bridge? Like, how am I going to do that? We can't do that with a Steadicam, not because, well, A, we can't afford one, but like that guy's gonna be fucking running the whole time. Like, there's no way you can run fast enough and like not trip or, you know, hurt yourself. Like, that's just a lot going on.
Get tired, yeah.
Safety concerns, yeah.
Yeah. So, wheelchair. I was like, I will push my DP around in a wheelchair, and I directed it while running for my life, pushing my DP, Adam Ewell was his name, on a wheelchair. And Jacob, our fucking landlord, gave me the wheelchair. I got the wheelchair from Jacob.
Did you
How
ask him
fucking
for
crazy
it,
is
or
that?
was he just like...
We must have... I must have mentioned to him that I was looking for one, and he like had one.
Yeah, of course he would have one.
Yeah, he just like randomly, of course, had one.
Hang on. Just go.
Yeah, Jacob lent me the wheelchair, and it worked beautifully. It was actually the perfect tool. Like it was smooth, and it swerved, and it was perfect, and yeah. But yeah, we can.
Except for you having to run pushing it. That seems
Listen,
like
passion.
also directing and running.
Yeah.
So instead of like the Steadicam guy doing it or anything,
right.
like you're like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do
Pushing a man on a wheelchair and holding gear. What did we shoot that with? We shot that with we shot that with a Sony.
Was it like a camcorder?
No, it was like an FS7.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we shot it with a Sony. So it was still bulky, you know?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just ran through Brooklyn and across the Williams. But it worked beautifully. Yeah. So that was interesting.
That's so
what would be the right gear for that?
Nowadays, I mean, probably some guy on one of those little hoverboard things with a Ronin.
Oh,
or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Word.
Or you'd be filming from like a rickshaw or like a four-wheeler with some sort of rig.
I guess it depends on the shots you were getting too, because you said you were going on the Williamsburg Bridge. Like,
Yeah, so it had to be nimble and like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that show on HBO that got canceled, the Laker show? Because that wasn't the guy like on skates.
Isn't that a movie?
I thought it was a TV show.
It's
on
about
HBO.
the
Okay,
Lakers.
a guy on skates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wasn't
that was a movie.
I thought they had like TV shows for that. I guess it got canceled. The dynasty of the Lakers.
Rollerblades.
Yeah.
Like there are some sick ass DPs who can fucking DP on skates.
Rollerblade,
No, like it's
ice skate.
sick.
Yeah.
It's sick. The work is sick. It's like next
That's
level.
that's what
smooth
puts you to
shots.
the next level when you're like you're
Yeah.
operating or DPing.
Yeah.
Is like, what else can you do?
Bro, like,
ride a
but
motorcycle?
can you skate? Can you skate?
Can you scuba dive?
Exactly. No, it's
And the
beautiful
list
stuff.
goes on.
Yeah.
What did
actually
you-
have a friend, Quinn Feldman in LA. He can DP with skates. He actually was like a professional skater before he DP'd. So just plugging homeboy. for,
Nice.
If you're ever looking for a DP on
I mean, if you
skates,
think about it, all those like videos where it's like you're either following someone skateboarding, following someone snowboarding, like you're
Yeah.
looking at them and
Yeah.
they're doing some amazing shit.
Yeah,
you're not
yeah, yeah,
realizing
yeah.
what that person who's holding
Right,
that camera. My friend
right.
used to do this in Vail.
Wow.
And it was like him with a red camera with a Movi
Right.
following skiers going down bowls. and you're like,
shit.
Wow.
you're not looking where you're
Like
going.
you're just trusting the process. Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Like you have to be so confident
Right.
with what you're doing that like you don't need to look at
Right,
that. You
right.
can just
Yeah.
follow.
Wow.
Right.
You can look at the screen and at them and know what's
Gauge
coming.
kind of. And I guess if I skated or if like my DP skated, we could have done it that way or something.
sure, yeah.
But that wasn't.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Holding
so,
onto
yeah,
his
we-
hips while he's
Yeah.
like going down the street.
Imagine. Or like I'm just like on a Segway, like
Yeah.
okay, now smile and. Oh my God, ridiculous.
What did your DP say when you were like, I got a wheelchair? Was he all for it, or was
He was like that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like he was just down. He
Yeah.
was just down. And like the shots were beautiful. It actually worked out really perfectly.
It's like, so going from being the photographer, like photographer on set, like a photo sort of world,
Yeah.
to like being the director now. In the photography world, from my understanding, being on set, it's kind of like it's the photographer. Like you're kind of the boss, and then everyone's working under you, and you're working directly with agency or whoever you're doing the photos for.
Sure.
But as a director, you're still doing that, but now you don't have control of the camera. You don't
Sure.
have control of this thing. It's not as much of just you, you know?
Yeah.
So what's that difference like, and how does
Yeah.
that affect your work?
It honestly feels the same. I don't feel like I'm blocked or sort of like I can't talk to people. I guess maybe on a film shoot, I maybe feel like I have less to think about. I have less to worry about because I have other heads of departments that are taking care of their own ship in a way. So the people that I'm speaking to are the heads, and then, just trusting that they're managing their own teams. So I don't necessarily feel that. But we were chatting earlier about like teams and things like that. Like I've had the same first photo assistant for like 8-10 years. We've been working together for ages. And I think, the beautiful part of the film industry is like you have your teams that you like, your preferred teams that you love to work with. So like approaching any job, like, I get asked like who I want to work with. And obviously the DP has to fit the creative, like, because different DPs have different styles. But I have my favorite DPs that I love to work with. And then I have like my favorite first ADs that I love to work with. I have my favorite fucking steady ops like that I love to work with. And it's just like so nice to be able to like go to set and feel like you're with family and just like, it's such a beautiful feeling to like see familiar faces.
And that's great. How do you expand that family? Like if they're not available, how do you find the next person to fill that obviously becomes engulfed in your group if they're a good, person for the team?
Honestly, amazing producers. Amazing producers are the ones that are like, okay, that person is not around, but this person is fucking amazing. I worked with them on this job. Here's the spot that we did, or like, you know, and then I look them up. Honestly, word of mouth, reputation. The like producers will put so many people on based on their experience with them. So like some of them, like my favorite people that I work with, for instance, like out in London when I'm working out there, came through my producer Mel Giles, who like just basically my first big spot out there. Like she was like, this person's amazing. This person's amazing. You'd get on with this person. Da 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 da. And I took her word for it. And sure enough, like 90% of those people, 100% of those people, I work with them still today because I just our energies match, our like the vibe, the personalities match, but like. I know that if I were to do a shoot and 3 of those people were not available because they're fucking amazing, I could lean on a producer that I trust to be like, well, who else do you think would be great? Yeah. You know, and 9 times out of 10, their suggestions are spot on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was curious about like how, you know, you crewing up for jobs and stuff. Like, was that the same kind of situation on this Lululemon spot that you did? Did you have the fortune of like working with your family and stuff on that?
Yes, I did. For the recent Lululemon spots that I just did, I got to work with a lot of like the family that I love to like work with and see. So my first AD, Elle, who I basically like, if I'm working in London, I'm trying to book her. And then Matt Alsop, who is an incredible Steadicam operator. He's my favorite. He's kind of like the GOAT out there. I always try to book him. And then I worked with my dude, Spike Morris, major groundwork family, DP. Spike, what's up? So Spike DP'd this Lululemon stuff, and he had so many fucking light gags that cracked me up. And it's so appropriate. And he's also a fan of shitty rigs, by the way, like major fan. Like when I told him that we were shooting together, he was like, "No fucking way, dude!" Like, not in that accent because he's British, but he had some hilarious setups on that job. They just progressively got crazier, basically, like progressively got nuttier. Basically, it's in studio shoot. We're shooting against the psych every day. So we had 4 different spots. Every spot had a different sort of like color combination, and every spot had a different sport and a different vibe and a different energy and like, you know, different flow. And so we wanted to do something also kind of different for the background and give it just like a slightly different texture, but still keep it dreamy. And so for the first day, this wasn't crazy. We basically just like, we wanted the background to have a little bit of like shine that was kind of like organic feeling and moving. And so we had, like, what is that called again? The silver
Mylar.
Exactly. So we had Mylar and just like a fan, you know, shining on it and like light shining on it. So it's just, you know, a twinkle. Cool. Basic. Fine. Next time I go into the studio, we have an old rickety door with like glass. Like it was like an antique door that had like glass.
Like a frosted window?
Like not even a frosted window. It was almost like if I remember correctly, but I have to dig back in my photos and we'll find the content for everybody, but it almost had like the bottoms of bottles in the.
It's like old glass.
Like old glass. It wasn't just regular sort of frosted glass. It was like, so all of a sudden I'm like, there's an antique door propped up and light shining through the glass. And that was creating the sort of like organic shapes on the wall. I was like, okay, that is different. Okay, interesting. it progressively got weird to, I think it was the last day, we had a tub of water on the ground, cut up Mylar in the water, one of our assistants churning it with like grip of some sort, like a metal device. I don't even remember what we used for it.
C-stand arm or something?
It wasn't even a C-stand. It was like, the funny, like that would make sense. But it was like they went to the parking lot and like found a piece of metal. And just like, and she was there churning it, and there was like lights hitting it, and that's what. Yeah. And I was like, Spike, this has gone too fucking far, man. No, but it was so fucking funny because every day it had to be something different.
Yeah.
But
what caused that? What caused like that chain reaction? Were you missing something, or like he was like, this would be a better shot. This would be a better shot. Oh my God, let's do this. Let's do this.
No, the funny thing is that was planned. That was planned.
Spike would probably get along with Smokey.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
Smokey, we had this other DP on here that I've worked with many years.
Spike and Smokey sound sick.
Oh yeah, they would get along like house on fire. You know, Smokey has this pool thing that you're describing, and I called it the pool of broken dreams.
Oh my God!
It's just a bunch of broken mirror tiles in a pool, in a baby pool that you would have to sit there and like waddle back and forth.
I can see how that would be beautiful.
But the reflection, it's beautiful.
Based on what I have seen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. But yeah, like it was so funny to me. I was just like, this is hilarious. Like no one would ever know watching the videos that this is
honestly,
what we're doing to
some of the most like ingenious effects come from things that you would just like would never know. Like I worked with a DP way back in the day where we would take plywood and use it as bounce board because it's just warmer. And you're like, oh yeah, duh. Like now it makes sense. But it's like then you're sitting there holding a piece of plywood while the wind's blowing and you're like, this sucks. Like,
It's
why am I doing this?
Yeah. It's always the obscure things, I feel like.
That only people on set would appreciate.
Well, no, not even it's but you have to like be that person that knows to go beyond, because it's very easy to just like throw up a sky panel and put an effect on the sky panel and be like, there it is. There he is.
Right,
and like there's a certain type of person that's like, I need a baby pool, a bunch of KY jelly and some mirrors.
Right. And also maybe it could have been like that door might have been part of the kit of our gaffer, who's
that's very possible too.
Yeah. It probably, because like to just have a random door that you're shining a light through, like he probably just had like a bag of tricks, you know?
Yeah, they usually do. Yeah.
They usually do. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike. Where does the KY jelly come in?
It's for you to find out.
Let's give texture to the water.
Yeah. Well, the water needs to be a little thicker.
I need a moment for this.
Oh man,
think about it. I'm just saying, it takes a certain type of person. Like I know someone who steals those lenses out of old tungsten units, and they shoot light through those.
Actually, it literally looked like that within a door.
Yeah. Like a Fresnel lens is actually really expensive to buy. Like if you buy if you're looking for like a large Fresnel lens, it's expensive to buy. But the cheapest way to buy it is to just buy a spare from like Ari or something.
I totally forgot this was behind me. You were pointing at me. I was like,
you were like, why the fuck?
Why are you pointing at me for? And I was like,
that guy right there.
I was like, it's the light behind me.
No, if I could describe, remember I was saying it looked like the bottom of a bottle cap, but I wasn't putting it together that it could have been a Fresnel lens, but I don't know why that would be in a door.
I think it's. I just did something in England and like at an old pub, and they have these old glass windows that are just they're like essentially like a blown sort of window where it's like circular, but it's not quite a Fresnel lens. But
it must have just been an old door where like either Spike or our gaffer like acquired in their kit, because it was like
just cool looking.
That reminds me of a Fresnel lens, and
I mean
you could probably shine light through that and be weird and get weird.
Smokey's got a storage unit of tricks, so.
That's amazing.
This is a thing. Spike and Smokey, you guys need to meet.
Spike and Smokey need to
Have
connect.
them on their episode.
Yeah. Just put them both together.
Just talking about tricks. Like, you ever tried this?
So how did the client feel? Super happy?
They were so lovely. Oh my God. The clients, first of all, like their art direction was gorgeous to begin with, which is why the work is so good. But then also it was super cool that they like would arrive to set and they were like just focused on what it looked like rather than how we were achieving that. So they didn't get weirded out by like, oh, we're shining a light through a door and like, you know.
They didn't care too much about the process more than the result, because sometimes you get client that's like very concerned of like
absolutely
how the it's made, and you're like, well, just wait for the result.
I feel like if they see the result and the result is cool, they're actually intrigued by the process
of how it's made.
I don't think a lot of client actually know what the hell goes into.
No, they mostly don't. But I guess because the process looked so rickety, like as far as like. It's so.
It looked very like homemade, like
that's
not
what. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like because it's so left field. Obviously, it's done with safety, and you know this door isn't going to fall and squash somebody, or you know we had tons of tape around the water, so like there was no way anybody would cross that line or whatever. But that being said, like if any of those lights fucking fell into that water, that would have been a really bad idea, right?
Yeah.
But, and so looking at it, it looks fucking rickety. And maybe to clients, they'd be like, why are you doing that? But they were super cool. They only cared about what it looked like. And yeah, it looked amazing.
It's a balance of risk versus reward.
Yeah. And if you're doing it safely, you know, then it's all good. Yeah.
Well, that's also the thing is like you have to like, anything that's going on, you know, like especially when you're like art directing or you're lighting something, it's like it doesn't matter what that looks like, because like we're not filming that. It like matters
what's on the monitor.
on the monitor.
Yeah.
So like you can let everything else burn and look like garbage, as long as like what's on the monitor is exactly what you're going for and what you end up.
Right.
With,
does
know?
it elevate it? Yeah. Okay, great. It does? Perfect.
Who cares if it's a door?
Yeah.
Slap an Ari sticker on it. Now it's $500.
Now it's an Ari door.
You know, we're kind of going down this vein, and I'm curious, like where you see yourself in like working with clients in the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in the industry, directing photography. Like, where's your balance of both worlds? You feel like you're focusing more on one. Where's the growth for you, and where you want to see yourself go next?
So I would love to direct a series and like direct and write a series. That's probably the thing that I haven't done yet that is super interesting to me. Like, I would love to direct features, but I think I just and I think maybe because I work in commercials so often, I'm used to projects that are
short form,
right? Documentaries I'm really good with, and like that's a long form thing that I feel very comfortable in it. I've been making them since I was young, but there's something about a series that I'm really intrigued by. So I would like to direct something that would either wind up on like HBO or Showtime or something like that. Just something, and I have an idea for a series that's been in my brain for a minute. So that's something that I want to move into at some point when it's right. And I want to keep doing commercials because they're genuinely so fun for me. And do more music videos. It's funny that when I chat with other director friends, the thing that they're not doing enough of, they feel like it's a deficit or something. In my world, I'm like, or when I look at them, I'm like, but your work is so fucking good. Like a lot of my friends who are like mostly doing music videos, but want to do commercials so bad. And I'm like, but your music videos are fucking sick, bro.
The grass is always greener.
Yeah. And we can just get on ourselves about like not doing enough of this thing. Yeah. And so like, like I would like to do more music videos because they're more fun. The only thing that sucks about music videos is that there's never a lot of money in them. the wonderful thing is that you get to be way more creative and edgy and different and like wild. And that gets you more jobs and hopefully gets you a commercial job that pays you more money, right? Commercials don't necessarily do the opposite. Commercials don't necessarily get you a music video job.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a music video because you did like a really fucking cool commercial. Like,
you're also not going to get like a series because you did a cool commercial either.
Correct. That's
like,
true. That's true.
Kind of like a top, and it just kind of.
You probably get a series faster as a music video director.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, because of that wild storytelling that you can
Or
do,
the
right?
aesthetic.
Visual
or-
storytelling.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
That's probably why they feel so good at what they're doing. They feel like they plateaued and they want to challenge themselves and get creative.
Yeah.
They
And
also-
I'm over
they
here
also
being
want-
like, but you're doing fucking great.
They also want money.
They also want money, and they also want money. Yeah. And they also want money, and that's true. But I do think like when people are following their passions, money will flow and follow.
Well, when you're following your passion, right? Because you do commercials, do you do any photography on your own still? Like where you get creative,
Yes.
maybe a little Vaseline on the screen, on the
On the screen.
On the screen.
So
Just for you
on
out
the
there.
LCD screen.
So we did use Vaseline for the Lululemon shoot. Spike did do some Vaseline for some shots, but it's so funny because I haven't done that probably in like 10 years or something in anything, but it worked for Lululemon. The interesting thing for me is that with directing, because I love filmmaking so much, I can do any job and enjoy it. I don't care if I'm directing a very cool Nike spot or a pharma job. I'm going to enjoy it. A pharma job that I will never post, by the way. You know, like love to those jobs, but it doesn't work for my portfolio. But like, I'm gonna enjoy the shit out of it. I just fucking love it so much. I love the process of it. I love the collaborative nature of it. I love the building. Like there's so much build up to the shoot, the pre-pro, and then you're shooting, and then the post. Like it is my fucking passion. With photography, what's interesting is that I got into photography as a fine art thing. So it was my passion. It was my it's my art, like a way for me to express myself as an artist. So not all photo jobs get my gears going. So I don't feel the same way about photography. I love photography with all of my heart, but as far as doing it as a job, I don't have the same feeling towards it the way that I feel about directing.
Yeah.
So like it's like, hey, like, do you want to do something with Megan Thee Stallion? Cool. Do you want to direct a spot about tampons? Cool. Like, I love them both. I'm gonna enjoy it, you know. And then with photography, not everything is. I don't have that same feeling. So I've been doing a portrait series with my friends in my space, and I've just been shooting portraits of them. And I've also been doing self-portraits a lot as well. And it's been so fucking fun and fulfilling. I started photography by shooting my friends and like shooting youth culture and like, you know, like just being out with my friends and like partying and raging and like just capturing what the fuck was going on. And now this is kind of like, this makes sense for where I kind of came from. It's all digital. It's all like, you know, it's studio portraits, but yeah, I'm always just really curious about people. So it's just like this black and white series that I do of people that are in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
that sounds
been
really
really nice.
personal and like
Yeah.
really like
That, it gives me joy.
yeah.
Yeah. What I did when we were meeting in the basement was I was like just super hyper focused on building my book. Essentially what that means is like expanding my portfolio, showing people that I had a number of things that they could look at that I had done, right? And so what I would do at that time when I was building my book, and this is when I left the fashion job and I was just like freelancing, and the reason why I started my then company, which is called Stoneman, and at the time it was called Stoneman Creative. It was kind of like a baby. It was like a think tank. It was kind of like a I was basically like a creative agency for like young designers. But at the time I was working with my contemporaries. They were young designers or young musicians, right? So I was either like shooting press photos for them or I was shooting lookbooks for them. What I would do is, because I needed this job to look so fucking good on my website, I didn't just shoot the thing. I was like, okay, but why are we shooting it there? Like, what's the story? Like, it had to go deeper. I wasn't just like, they weren't just calling me to do the job and I'm just showing up to rock up to do the job. I needed it to look fucking amazing. I needed it to look like me. As in I could stand behind it. You know what I mean? At the level of, I got somebody to change their logo because I thought it was fucking tacky.
Oh. Damn. Wow.
And I was like, try this logo. Like because it was so dire for those projects to look fucking good and to create more work for me, right? So it wasn't just like, this is a check. It was like, yes, it's a check, but it's got to look fucking amazing. And how can I make it more than just this thing? And so then I would suggest, like, do you want to make a video? Like, we can literally make a video. A lot of the times I did those videos for free. I don't necessarily suggest doing free labor, but because I wanted to build my book, a lot of the times I did it for free, or I did it for a very little markup, the tiniest shit. And I was actually like, I was like using part of my rate to make it happen, but it was to just create volume on my website and just create the work. And so I think it's about, if I could relay some wisdom or impart some advice, and like, obviously, like, this may not completely apply because this was me 13 years ago, and but this was also like out of the fucking recession. Like, people didn't have fucking money back then. We have way more money now. Like, the economy is way better than it was back then. So I think if I did it then, it could probably still apply now. But I think it's really just about like understanding that if you're just starting out, it's really about building volume, but also making it fucking good. So like being very purposeful and like, maybe this designer that you're shooting for isn't that cool, but how can you make it cooler? How can you, like, maybe that's suggesting a different talent to shoot it. Maybe that's like you're not the stylist, but you can surely say, hey, those earrings are looking fucking nasty. Like, let's take those off.
So if you're not getting paid what you should be getting paid, you should treat the work like an investment, and you should treat the work like whatever comes out, like this. It
needs to pay me.
Exactly.
Yes, and actually, the reason why I started my company was because I was like, it is not going to look sexy when this shit comes out and it's like location scout, photographer, art director.
The classic indie movie, like,
yeah, like, it's all me. Like, I was like, let me just, like, it was just like a Stoneman production, and they don't have to know that I did 17 jobs, but I just wanted people to be like, oh, what the fuck is Stoneman? Look it up and then find me, But basically, essentially, I was doing 17 jobs so that the work looked good.
Yeah.
So I would suggest just, understanding that you're investing time into this project. How can you bring the reward back? Like, your return on investment, the time that you put in, like, how can you bring it back to you? It's by making it as good as possible. So if you're starting off scrappy and you're just starting out, I would just suggest, like, not being helicoptery about it, not being like nitpicky about it, but just understanding that you can actually like kind of like help lift it up, especially if you're working with people who are just starting out, which I was when I was just starting out.
How was that process of like you having to like give up? No, God, I'm having something wrong with me every time. This damn salt is everywhere.
Yeah, you're Salt Bay.
How are you drinking?
You're Salt Bay.
I'm just like It's so good that
Like I'm not looking at you, and you're just
covered in salt. Salt is like your glitter.
But please tell me if I have salt on my face.
No, you know.
no. Everyone else is
everyone's fine. It's just Stefan that's over here
just salting his face.
Yeah.
Over there.
I think my question here is like, what was that process for you for you having doing every job to going, I need to relinquish some control or like get some help so that I can grow as a brand?
Listen, I did not do those jobs because I liked the control. I did those jobs because I didn't have money. The people that I was working with didn't have the resources or the ability to pay for someone to handle those jobs. So it was more so like, I'll do it. I'm happy to do it, you know? And like, to me, it's not a control thing. I want to work with the best casting director. I want to work with the best location scout. I want to work with the best, the best person for every department. So it was more so like it's a luxury now to me that I can work with people who are passionate about those roles and can do it well. So it was more so I was just doing it to be resourceful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool that you have that sort of goal for yourself too. Is like, I want to work with the best of this department,
oh my God,
the best
yeah.
of that department.
And you never want to be the best in the room, I think, to grow. To grow, I don't really want to be the best.
I'd rather be a sheep among lions than a lion among sheep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What quote is that from?
That's Stefan at 5 a.m. when he wakes up and meditates before he does anything in life.
Very good.
It's definitely from a movie.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's from a lot of like just memes and shit. I mean, I'm sure it's someone. Yeah.
The movie.
Yeah, the movie line.
It's
Yeah.
definitely from a motivational TikTok.
It's just straight 5 a.m. motivation for Stefan in the morning just to get through the day for sure.
As you're about to like go to the gym, you're like,
No, but that's
it's pretty true.
that's real ass shit though. Yeah, that's
some
real
real
ass
shit.
shit.
Yeah.
You want to be with people who challenge you to get better.
Well, Christelle, I feel like we could keep talking for another 3 hours.
Facts.
But we should probably send you home.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming out. Thank you for sharing with us, giving us all this wisdom from all the years of experience you've had. And if you guys want to see more of Christelle de Castro's work, please check out the info below. You'll find her website, ChristelleDeCastro.com. Follow her on Instagram. We'll definitely plug in more of her stuff, especially her Lululemon spot. And I want to thank you again for being here.
Thank
and
you
Mayo,
so much.
of course.
Mayo.
For being here, Mayo. Being such a trooper.
Mayo, come on up.
Come on, Mayo.
Mayo, come on. Mayo,
Don't eat the chips. Don't eat
give me some tortilla.
come on. Mayo, come on.
Come on, Mayo. No.
We'll have to cut that. Mayo,
She's
come on,
good.
come on.
She's
Mayo,
good.
Mayo,
She's
Mayo.
good.
Mayo.
You're done.
Mayo.
Guys.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.
Next one, guys.
Deuces.
Come on, Mayo.
Zach, listen, I'm going to need a rate bump.